when people are having like a mental breakdown, or they're going through something, they often go through a major physical change, and haircut's always the lowest hanging fruit. So I always feel like if somebody gets a major haircut, colors their hair, you know, shaves their beard, like I'm like, you might want to check on that person. And when I cut my hair, it would have been nice had somebody checked on me because I wasn't doing great. I feel like this coincides nicely with the whole retirement thing for me is, and it could make it really challenging. If you'd have told me that something I feared my entire career, which was retirement, isolation to a degree, not having my teammates, because like I'd have a bye week and be away from my teammates for 3 days, and I feel like I was going nuts. And I was like, if this is retirement, I'm not going to last. And then it kind of happens. You got to face your first year. If you'd have told me there was a pandemic my first year out, I would have said I had no shot. But what this has done is not only being away from football, but being to myself, kind of how you said, you get that kind of introspective time where you're like learning about yourself, and you don't have time to be distracted by the next deadline or like the next social event. And for me, it was that and football on top of it. So over the last year, I've been able to grow more, and especially over the past 4 to 6 months, even though it's kind of sucked being in the house a lot, I've been able to grow more and learn more about myself than I ever did in the last 35. So, you got to look at the bright side of some things. I know it's tough, and it's an awful thing, but you don't have a choice. So if you're at home, you might as well work on yourself. So
Totally. I mean, I think, like, wish this weren't happening so much, and it's so frustrating because of the way it's happening. And at the same time, these are our lives. So,
yeah.
what sort of surprised you the most about retirement, or like, what have you learned about yourself as you've been doing this sort of inward looking time?
Well, I think it was like I feel like most people, they don't have questions that they don't get answered for like a decade that eventually get answered. And for me, it was like, who am I without football? Will I be okay? Am I going to be this guy that loses my mind, gets a divorce, like has a midlife crisis immediately? All these horror stories, head trauma, all this stuff that people are afraid of with football, the loss of a purpose. Um, for 10 years, 11 years, and even longer subconsciously, because I've been a football player since I was 15. And
Hmm.
that includes like high school when I was working towards a goal, to get a scholarship and that sort of thing. You give your life to that craft. And to get that question answered, it's like illuminating. You're like, most people don't have questions that linger that long and they get them answered. Like we get them answered. And so for me, like the answer to that question is that I'm perfectly happy without football. I never needed football, which is what I always suspected. That doesn't mean I didn't try to outwork everybody in my profession, because that's the way I am. But I wasn't enjoying it the last couple of years, even though it was awesome and there were a lot of great things going on. I finally got to win and that sort of thing. Like Monday through Saturday had lost this enjoyment for me, and it's one thing to recognize that, but it's another thing to think, okay, I'm not enjoying this, but what's on the other side of the door? Is this going to be even worse? It's been light years better. And in fact, last year I got the bug. I wanted to come back and play at times, and I got some calls or whatever. I'm kind of glad I didn't take anybody up on those calls. And this year, if somebody called me talking about no fans in the stands, like who wants to play football right now? Like, you kidding me? So this is kind of like, this is a nice nudge away from the game. And I think the biggest thing for me was realizing that you don't realize when you're on that treadmill for like 20 years and you can't get off, how much your adrenaline is just sucked. I mean, like how much, your energy, your ability to work on yourself, your ability to learn things about yourself, try other things, to be more relaxed. I love myself now, like in my life, more than I did when I was a player. So
It's so great to hear that, because I remember, I mean, I don't know if people watching this know, but I wrote a profile of you in 2017, which
yeah,
now feels like
feels
10
like
years ago,
it's hilarious.
which is how we know each other. And something that you said then really stuck with me. We were at where you and Megan Whalen, I guess Luke wasn't born yet, were
Yeah,
living in Philly.
yeah,
And I think it was like 10 minutes into our first conversation. And I mentioned, I forget how it came up, but you said, do you know what scares me the most? about football or football ending, and I was like, what? And you said the void.
Yeah.
This was clearly something that had been on your mind for a while.
There's a void. I mean, you see guys like not able to fill that void. And I think part of it is, why did you play the game of football? If you played the game of football because that's who you are, a football player, I don't know that you're ever going to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
I played football to accomplish something and to live like a full life and to like take myself uncomfortable places and to do the thing I know that I'm best at doing. Maybe there's something I'm better at than football and I'm trying to work on that. But I think the big thing is like why you play the game, knowing that in a really healthy way, knowing who you are without it was something that, I mean, I'm not great at a lot of stuff, but I know that like I know who I am and I didn't need football to be me. And so like the void for me, I came to find out, was not that scary because I'm a father, I'm a husband. I like the podcasting thing. I'm working on it. There's some days I hate it. Um, I love my friends. Like, in fact, I get to do more of that stuff. I get to adventure, be outside. Like I didn't get to do that in football. I was always like getting told what to do and when to be somewhere. And all year, you never get off that treadmill. Even you get that month off or whatever, where you got nothing to do. There's still that dark cloud like of expectation and of answering the bell. Like right now, July, I'd be here in Montana. I'd be training my ass off twice a day. And I'd be smiling watching my kids play or like, but I'm not smiling inside because I know that in a month I have to go get in a bunch of car accidents and the pressure that goes with that and such. So listen, you'll never be able to recreate Sunday. I will never feel the adrenaline rushes that I did getting a sack, in front of 70,000 people at the link, or, making a big play or celebrating with my teammates. That's gone. And it's healthy to just say it's gone. You'll never get that again. But also with the highs, you also don't have the lows that football gave you. There's no Mondays where the whole world's like, you suck. Like, I hate you.
God.
Where were you? There's no walking into a facility on Monday with everybody they're just puckered up and they're afraid of the head coach or the GM.
Yeah.
And it's just a bunch of grown people acting like children. I don't have to deal with that anymore. And it's awesome. So my life is more like this. It's not like this. It's not like this. And that's what football was. Really high highs and really low lows where you get praised high and you get on. And I don't get either of those, and I'm fine with that.
Well, Chris, you say that you'll never be able to recreate Sundays, but if all this ends and we can go back to having crowds, you could sell out an arena with that podcast someday. Who knows?
A small like arena that they do like dirt bike motocross stuff for monster truck rallies, but not one of the big ones yet.
Like off-Broadway checkoff plays.
Yeah, so yeah, somewhere where they do like Disney on Ice, but not in a big arena, like a smaller Disney on Ice type of place.
But yeah, how's the podcast going? You're a media mogul. What's that been like?
Man, you know what? Like, it's cool and it sucks because this is, again, a hell of a time to be in the media, right? Because nobody can hide on a lot of very real issues. And I've never been one to hide. But it's exhausting to talk 3 times a week. When I was a football player, people loved that I was outspoken because I used social media like I was a regular dude, because I am. But this is a way different animal than firing off a couple tweets a week or, live tweeting a basketball game on TV or talking about music. Like, to answer the bell a couple times a week because I do care about what I do. Now, if I didn't care and I just rolled the ball out there, that'd be one thing. But I put a lot into these pods, and I want my guests to feel respected. I want people to feel like when they come on that I'm not just around. Like, I'm serious about this, and I'm curious. I care about what you do. I care about, who you are. But then there's days where you don't have interesting guests, and there's days where there's nothing to talk about, and there's days where there's topics that you don't feel like talking about, and that can be kind of exhausting. And the same feedback thing sucks. I mean, some people tell you suck. Some people have a lot of nasty things to say. It's like it's almost more personal than football, because if I miss a tackle, it's not reflective of who I am, although most football fans can't, differentiate. But if I say something that reflects my views or what I believe, that's who I am. And so I'm putting myself out there a lot more than I did when I played football. It can be terrifying.
Totally. I mean, what, like, do you think that you got more more negative engagement playing football, or, doing the media stuff now?
Maybe playing football, because when I was playing football, I was also speaking on things. So like I was getting the football side of it, and I was getting, the hey, don't talk about like police brutality, or don't talk about, don't talk about my orange guy. Like there was a lot of that criticism. I think probably football because it was a double-edged sword. But
Totally.
this is totally more personal. Now, like I said, I don't have the highs and lows that I used to have. Like my big victory is having like I had Jalen Rose on the other day, and Jimmy Traina. Me and Jimmy
Yeah.
Traina ranked fruits, and I worked hard at ranking those fruits all Tuesday, and then had to wake up Tuesday morning early and talk to Jalen. And I had this panic to me a little bit, and I get this sometimes where I'm a little bit under prep for this interview because I've been working hard. There's real reasons, and I haven't had the time. I got 2 kids. What if Jalen Rose comes away from this and says, this guy doesn't care. He doesn't know anything about like any of the questions. He's not a great interviewer. That's a major media member. Like, so the pressure that came with football, I do feel that still a little bit with, showing up and showing out in a totally different way, and that pressure's healthy. As I get older, maybe it's me just being an old man and getting tired of it, or maybe having the autonomy of not working for anybody, which is nice. Green light pod, that's my plug. But like I don't work for a network. I'm kind of on my own, which is hard because then you have to bootstrap yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
I get I'm a football player, and that's an advantage, but I don't have the big distribution, that sort of thing. But I also don't have to answer to anybody. I can say what I want. I don't have to apologize for anything unless I'm sorry. I don't have to talk about, anything that I don't want to. So that's nice as far as being a free agent. And you stop giving you stop giving a crap what people think,
Totally.
more, which is dangerous for me.
What are some of your favorite episodes you've done, or favorite people you've talked to, or things you've covered on the pod? Greenlight Pod, everybody follow.
Green light pod. Okay. So lately, and this is how, you ever feel like you don't remember anything?
Yes, constantly.
Okay. So did you
I don't remember all of April.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, who remembers like the last couple months? I don't.
No.
So this last month was a really good month for us. I had Steve Kerr on. He was great. Matt Barnes was great. Mark Cuban. So we got some NBA guys on. I could have talked to Mark Cuban for 2 hours. Okay. We had Tom Morello on, who's obviously a founding member of Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave, Prophets of Rage. And he only had 30 minutes, but he's so brilliant that like topically he was able to just move from one thing to the next. He was great. Bruce Arians was great. There hasn't been one that I feel like. John Kruk the other day. We had John Kruk from the Phillies, and he's a great storyteller. I would say lately it was Kruk, and probably Mark Cuban. I could have used like 2 hours with him.
Was there anything they said that totally blew your mind?
Just that Lenny Dykstra used to take his, like, he was so superstitious, he would mid-game go in the locker room and strip down all the way, and guys would walk in and he'd be butt naked, and you'd be like, what's wrong? He's like, I can't get a hit. He's like, I need a new uniform. And he'd be just standing there with his unit out. And, stuff like that. I love the ridiculous, like, when you talk to a baseball guy, and John had like 6, 7 great stories. I have this theory about baseball players. They are great storytellers because there are so many stories. They hang around so much. They're on the road, they're in the dugout, and the recall is tremendous too because they don't get hit in the head. So you ask a football player, like, tell me a story about, you ever notice football players are like, I can't think of one.
Oh my God, Chris. The baseball thing is so real though.
Yeah, they're just all like practical jokesters. They have like great recall, and Kruk was great. I would say there was nothing that really, who I want to have on? I want to have like astronauts. I want to have like survivalists. I want to have architects on. Like, I'm so bored with sports right now because there's nothing, we're contriving it.
Sports.
But yeah, you got sports on your shirt.
I got
You're trying to make the sports thing happen.
Yeah, I'm like, if I wear the shirt, then they'll be able to safely come back.
But did you notice how you asked me, was there anything that really resonated? I was like, yeah, I'm kind of.
You're like, yeah, well, let me just look at the list.
I remember Lenny Dykstra used to get naked. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything. You know,
Oh,
I had my
that's
dad.
not it.
I had my dad on. That was great for Father's Day.
I
I
love
love
that.
having Diana Rossini on. She's amazing. She's a great guest. You've come on some of the live watches. That's been great. I like the networking part of dealing with people I like and enjoying conversations with them.
Well, it's like when you have a podcast, you decide who comes over for dinner. It's like the media version of having a dinner party.
Exactly. Unless your bookers are like, sorry, we booked this guy without asking, and you're like,
Well, thank you so much. It is so good to catch up, and it's so nice to see you in a lovely place.
lots of is a stone background. I
It's
mean,
really good.
you could extrapolate that there's a beautiful lake out there. I mean, I didn't make that the background because the lighting was going to be tough. So
Thank you. That's so considerate.
yeah, no
You have the
problem.
lighting.
I'm in the biz, man.
You
So
are a medium member.
yeah. So appreciate you,
All
Sean.
right.
It's always
Thanks.
good talking to you.
Oh, you too, man. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.